What's up, bro? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to the Conversation of Mike Muse Show. I am super excited to be in conversation with my next guest. I am such a huge fan of his, and I got to be honest, I was actually nervous about this one. I don't get nervous at all for any of my interviews. But ladies and gentlemen, I have the Rich Paul here. Rich, what's happening, man?
How's it going?
Pretty good, brother. The reason I'm excited, I don't get nervous because I'm never excited to meet my guest, right? Like, it's a job. So I'm never fanning out over individuals, but there's been something about the way you have conducted yourself and the way that you've done business. You just broke norms, shattered the norms. You journeyed your own path, man. And it is so commendable. And I'm such a sports guy. I've been following the crew of you, LeBron and Maverick, and what you guys do as brothers and as black men. I celebrate all the time. So it's an honor to have you here on my show today.
Thank you. And Randy, but thank you. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Randy too.
Yes.
Yeah. Got to get everybody in there at one time, man. You're here because you have a book out, Lucky Me, a memoir of changing the odds, man. How do you feel having a book out right now? You're the talent.
I feel
you
great.
Are the talent.
I feel great. When I was thinking about doing it and understanding how I wanted to, if I was to do a book, what type of book I wanted it to be, I didn't know what to expect. But once I got into it, and really it became this therapeutic thing for me because I had all that trauma inside of me, and this was my opportunity to release it. I didn't know that going in, but this is what I felt as I was writing the book. It was tough because I had to relive moments, which was very tough, but also I was able to get it out, which I had never done before.
Yes, I never met you personally. I don't know you personally. I only know from social media and from interviews. But you don't seem the guy who'd be vulnerable in terms of emoting.
The way I grew up, we wasn't allowed to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I've been in a lot of conversations centered around black men and safe spaces for black men, and particularly around the mental space of black men and the part that we don't emote. We've been challenging this narrative of that's why we have a lot of issues that we do is because we never do emote or show vulnerability.
Yeah, I think, again, like our neighborhood, you just had to get over it and keep going. But that's not necessarily a healthy thing to do. Yeah. I actually got emotional last night after 60 Minutes, which I never do get emotional, but I've matured as a man, and also I don't live in that space that I came from. And so you had to have this. One of the issues that we have is, everyone has to be so tough and hard about everything because society makes you think that's what you have to be. Music, streets, things we did in the streets make you think that's how you had to be. Yeah. And then if you're in an environment where everything is about, not being a sucker, not being you start to build walls that you actually need as a human to really evolve as a person. And so
that's also a true act of freedom.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
When did you
emotional freedom, and
which is rare. I was having a conversation. I was speaking with Offset this morning, and we were talking about like his state of mind right now and the freedom that he's existing in right now. I feel like there's this revolutionary act going around with black men kind of getting free. When did you find your moment like, I'm free to express myself? I'm free to be. Was there a moment you like this time? Be free?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes with your positioning. Being. We was never able to really freely express ourselves because there was just always so much judgment on us, right? The perception, people's perception mattered. And so you told people very little, you showed people very little because you just didn't want to be judged. And as I'm already young and black, so there's a judgment that comes with that right off the bat. Yeah. Now, when you start to pile up those other things, good, bad, or indifferent, it was something that we were very reluctant of doing because of that. And so oftentimes we just, you just kind of had this even kill component to it. And I really, you was excited. I don't celebrate deals. I haven't celebrated a deal. But last night I was excited I leaned into the excitement because I didn't want to be too cool in the moment. And I think it's important not to be too cool. And it helps you do other things. It helps you compliment other people. It helps you make decisions for other people and with other people in mind and things like that. So just an evolution, just a maturation process. You know, you're never too old to get better.
Was it tears you said last night? Was that your way of celebrating yourself?
Nah, it was.
What was it?
I think
it was.
It was more so just a journey. You know, watching that 60 Minutes piece, which I didn't want to watch it with nobody, and I ended up watching it with some friends. And then a friend of mine said a toast. It just made me think about all the things we had to go through, and for me to be in this position, and things that we had to, the detriment that was there, the pitfalls, and the friends we lost, and the family members. You know, I lost both my parents, my grandparents. You know, just lost my little cousin on Thursday. He was 17 years old, and I buried his father in 2009. So, you know, like just thinking about all that stuff came into play. And then also it was a happy time too, just that forget the money and the power and all that, but just happiness of being an example that people can strive to or aspire to be, not be like me. I don't like to say people be like Rich Paul, but more so just an example of, I started here. These things it was tough. It was tough on all of us, right? Just making it through, trying to survive a day. Everything I did, everything you read about in the book came from a place of just trying to survive. It wasn't a glorification. It wasn't a trying to be too cool. That wasn't never my thing. I was trying to make money. I was trying to survive, and I was trying to, you know, reposition myself the best way I could and what I knew then. And so being able to sit there and watching that segment and being just an example for people to understand and to really, I would say, stay motivated and actually believe that you can do something despite all these things that today you may seem like the walls are caving in. But that experience of those walls caving in, if you can survive the cave, when you get on the other side, it makes you really sharp, you know?
Let me lean into the walls caving in, because so many black men out there feel the pressure to get up and be great, no matter what your industry is, no matter what your sector is, all the way from truck driving, all the way to being a sport agent, like getting up in the morning, feeling the pressure to be great and to excel because of the pitfalls and trappings that come from being a black man. And image is everything. I never wear gold chains, but I put it on today. And I remember walking in, a colleague of mine was like, "You look so different." You know, it was almost, she was saying, she made a joke. She was like, "You're kind of like scary black man now," right? And she was black herself, right? But it goes into like how we view black men. Even when we put a gold chain on, what does that symbolize? Like, it's always a statement regarding black men.
And it shouldn't, if you look at the cover of the book, it shouldn't symbolize that, you know, like that's a flyness. That's something that we like to, we're kings at the end of the day. And so that's part of our everything, right? And so that's what I brought to the industry. Like,
so much that defines who we are, right? Like society and media is constantly defining who we are.
It says something. It says, you know, back in the day, that's what they align with the streets or the big gold chains, and then it was the rappers or whatever the case may be. But that's no different than a lady carrying a Hermes bag or you know, having, you know, their Tiffany's this or Van Cleef that, or, you know, and for them, it showed a classiness.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it could be class for us too.
Yeah.
It's just, again, but there's that judgment and that perception, and that was coming from somebody that looked like you. So it's not necessarily a race thing, right? It's just a perception thing.
And it's what media has done to us.
Right. So I chose that picture on the cover of the book. I'm sitting there, I'm 13, 14 years old. I chose that cover for a reason. And I got the gold herringbone on, and I'm sitting up against the wall. And I remember that day vividly. Yeah. And you know, if you don't know me or don't know my story, you would have judged me. You would say I look like what? You know, I look like whatever you thought I looked like. But to me, I looked like what I wanted to be.
Yeah. And I love that. I love watching you maneuver about the world and the different looks that you have of like fashion and different places that you show up. I was always so heartbroken. I have a really close, black male friend, this one in particular, and he always would tell me that he used to dress and wear a suit every day so he can get the respect. And it used to shatter me, right? I was like, you don't have to dress like that to get the respect. He was even down to the way he would adjust his tie clip. He said, symbolize something. He was just so under that construct of like dress and images, everything that portrayed greatness. And I'm like, no, your work ethic is what portrays greatness.
I think those, but I can't blame him because that's what the establishment was teaching us. That's what it had to be like. It's not the clothes. It's the person wearing the clothes. And that's why part of my disruption in my industry was exactly that. I'm not wearing a suit every day. I switch it up. I may be in a suit, just like when I was in the third grade, I wore tux to my third grade graduation, right? Or I may be in a hoodie. I like to wear jacket. It just depends, but I gotta be me.
As long as it's your choice.
It's my choice, yeah, of course.
And that's why I love seeing you so free of movement, because it's your choice. But I want to get to the part about like the Rich Paul rule, right? And I've always wonder what you were thinking like during that time period. And for those who are not familiar with the Rich Paul rule, there was a time period where the industry, and particularly in the agency world, NCAA, did not want to see Rich Paul be great and do what he was born to do in terms of his greatness. And they said in order to be an agent, you had to have a college degree. And they called it the Rich Paul rule. And for me, that was so built on race, xenophobia, like all the isms, all the things out there.
And mainly discouragement. Yeah. And like there's other establishments out there still to this day, like there's agency I left from, they try to put a narrative out there, he's not certified. Man, get out of here with that. Like nobody's focused on that. But I was so locked in that it didn't even hit me at first. Yeah. It wasn't until the internet started calling it the Rich Paul rule when it dawned on me that it was about the people coming behind me. Yeah. That's what mattered most. And so that's when I wrote the op-ed. Yeah. And it changed. They basically got rid of it in 6 days.
As a black man, when the walls are caving in, you writing that op-ed, the Rich Paul rule, like all the self-doubt, all the things that you're constantly having to disprove, that so many black men constantly have to disprove when we walk to a room.
Still to this day, yeah.
Who catches you? Like, do you turn to your tribe? Do you turn to other black men? Do you turn to, like, what's your outlet for support?
I got a great support system. I mean, I can't, it could be anybody, not anybody, but in my inner circle, I have a great support. I run things by several different people in my inner circle.
Now I'm asking you not for you to drop a name, but I'm just asking that because a lot of times black men, we have that we keep it into ourselves.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
it
could be. I got friend group chats that we talk about everything on. I also have business group chats that I talk about everything on. I have a staff. It varies. It varies across the board. So, but. Still to this day, you have to continue to prove yourself over and over again, especially me in my shoes. Like I still get questioned on how to do my job. I still get, even after, but
$4 billion later.
But they don't, but for the
of deals.
Yeah. But they allow them to tell them how they, what they're going to do. But I'm questioned. But that's just how it is, which is, it keeps me sharp, though, so it's fine. Yeah.
Sometimes do you walk in to certain rooms knowing that you have to overprove yourself?
Not today. No. I think that, oddly enough, I'm welcomed in more rooms now than ever before. I think the people that actually value it, they welcome me in different rooms now. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you can turn that, having the chip on your shoulder, as we often do, as I often have had, like coming into rooms. Now I can walk into rooms with ease.
Yeah. And there's a respect level. And that's what, in the book, Lucky Me, a lot of it, the foundation, everything at its core is starts with the respect of it. And my dad was, when I talk about R&J Confectionery in that chapter, my dad he owned the store, but he was a man's man who exuded that respect and that principle and that moral every single day. Like it wasn't like for fake. Yeah. It was every single. So that's just was habits that were built within.
What are your thoughts on the convenience store? I feel like that. I know it's in your book, you talk about it, associated around the convenience stores. I was having a conversation recently about convenience stores and Black men as a gathering space. We oftentimes talk about like the barbershop as like the gathering space, but we kind of leave out the idea of what the convenience stores meant to Black communities. We talk about a lot from a bodega perspective here in New York City, right? But outside of that, we don't talk about convenience stores as it relates to Black communities.
Well, there's not many Black small business owners anymore. But when I was growing up, most of the stores in the neighborhood were Black, and my dad was a part of that group. And I remember riding around with my dad to McLeod's, or there was a store on the corner of Parkwood and I think it was Gooding, and it was in between two streets. But my dad would go there, and my dad had all these, Mr. Lim, and he had all these different friends that were Black business owners. And Mr. Lim had a store right next to my dad's, but he and Mr. Lim had a deal. My dad opened up at 6 a.m. He closed at 7:30. Right when the number come out, my dad closed. Yeah. Mr. Lim opened up at 5:30. He closed at 2:30 after the liquor license was done. So they had that. And they didn't break that. That way, it was no overlap, right? They really, and just think about that for a second, right? They're competitors. They right down the street. They pretty much got the same consumer base, but they had enough respect for each other to have a conversation and make it make sense. My dad did not have the liquor license to sell after a certain time. Mr. Lim did. So it made sense for them to have that conversation. And they looked out for each other. They watched out for each other. And they would walk down to each other's store and talk. And Mr. Lim would come down to my dad's store and talk to him. And so I saw early on that there was a competitive nature there, but there was a profound respect for one another. So that example allows me in my space. The only difference is I don't respect most agents for sure, because they don't have the integrity that I come with. They don't have that principle, and so my energy has to change. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Audience, I sat back in my chair with Rich, as Rich was describing that, there was something beautiful in that moment that was just coming to me, in the sense of, at an early age, you saw Black men cooperating for economic gain. You were able to see Black business work together and be united, all for the common good, or for the community, for the culture, and also too for business bottom line. Oftentimes, there is this narrative out there that Black businesses don't work together well.
It's not a narrative. It's a fact.
It is a fact, but I think it's because we haven't seen those examples growing up of seeing people cooperate with cooperative economics.
But it's a step before that. Yeah. It's not because we haven't seen those examples. They don't have the want to become an example for us to see. That's the issue, because especially in sports, they teach you to be competitive. Yeah, I'm competitive once we're in the arena when we're competing, but then when you put the ego in place too, now I can't do business with you because you're not gonna get the bigger piece and I'm getting in. It's such a small-mindedness to it all, which is why me and Maverick and LeBron and Randy's situation is such that should be the norm. But by the way,
it's not. But that's why I got excited watching y'all.
It's not. It should be. But it should be.
It should
because I know this for all of us. But I'm speaking. One thing about the book, what it taught me, and what my dad always taught me, is there's a principle in everything you do, and integrity. So what does that allow me to do? I never made a decision for LeBron or around him that was only for my benefit, that would be of detriment to him, but my gain. That's never been, and I know Maverick didn't do that. I know Randy didn't. And so it was a different dynamic, right? And so when people saw our success as like, oh, they're black, we can do that. They're just his boys, whatever. No, I'm not going to even call that the surface because I don't even know what that is, right? I think if you're thinking that way, then it just says so much about you. I don't even want to have that conversation with you. But for me, when I look at that and then I see the conversations that I have with people still to this day, we have so far to go, like so far to go as it pertains to us doing business with each other. Because I'll give you a prime example. When we were doing a movie, they were like, okay, we want these guys to be in the movie. Great. This was his doing. And one of the guys was like, well, I'm not going to do it unless I'm getting paid what he getting paid. It's like, why would you even lead with that? You're not even thinking about your own brand and the fact that you have, so many things, a business that you're building. Think about the opportunity for your business, but that's our thing. And that goes from the streets too. Like if it was all about, people compare everything to money. So if I feel like I'm making just as much money as you, then we're on the same level. And it's a big issue in sports because if I'm a max player on the team and then you're a max player on the team, just because I get paid the max don't mean I'm actually a max player. It's a big difference amongst the two. And then if I am being paid the max and I consider myself a max player, but I'm not doing the things that a max player is expected to do both on and off the floor, then I can't really consider myself a max player. I just make a lot of money. That's why I wish we would just remove that term max player because it causes, from an ego perspective, it causes you to think a certain way. There's an entitlement that sinks in. And it actually becomes a detriment to most guys.
Let me ask you this, and I don't want to keep you, because I know you got to go, but we're kind of hitting on something really interesting. I look at some of the deals that you have gotten for your players, and when we're thinking about the max, like the idea of when you hold out, when you can get more. I'm just wondering, as a lot of your clients are black, not only, but a lot are, do you think because you understand the dynamic of like race and class and identity and structure that you know what the value is and that you're not going to undermine them because of like your constitution, seeing Black cooperative economics, seeing all these great examples?
Well, I think it's that, but it's also these guys aren't going to play forever, right? And so if you have a specific value, you have to protect that value. Now, there is a risk that comes with it because you can overplay your hand for sure. There's a risk that comes with it. But then there's also this component of athletes should never compare themselves to somebody else. There's always going to be somebody that make more money than you. So like, say I sign a contract today, I sign for $10. And then tomorrow you sign for $15. Your family shouldn't come to me saying, well, he signed for $10, he signed for $15, he should get the $15. That was last year, right? But the goal is because when I signed for $10, the business was this, it was that, it was a different dynamic. But now I'm playing this out. So now the next deal I may get may be $25. This person's next deal may stay at $15. Not that I'm competing with him, but you just can't, it's a lot on these guys. So I try to focus on a number of things, but mainly their value being protected because I don't know how long they're going to play at that value.
Yes.
So it's important, but it's a risk because I don't care what you say to people. I think there's less and less guys that actually understand their positioning and actually understand that you just can't do dumb shit, man. Like, why would you, we went through this. Why would you continue to do something? Yeah. And we just talked about this, right? And so I also understand why agents just oftentimes just get the money and just do whatever, because that's also a way to protect guys from themselves. But it's just, it shouldn't have to be that way. If me and you have an understanding and I tell you something, for the most part, if I tell my guys something, they trust me enough and it is what it is. Every now and then, you know, like anything in life, you have to repeat yourself over and over and over again. But it shouldn't be that way, especially in business.
Yes.
'Cause this is business. And so that they have to understand that this is not a game. This is business. And it's a very big business. So
multi-trillion-dollar business at this point.
But again, like, that's me. That's how I do things. And that's coming from a place of truth. And there's a respect first and foremost. Most people tell guys what they want to hear, and they create this narrative of to get the money because they want to lock you in as fast as they can so they make sure they get paid. I'm not doing that. That's why I'm able to take the risk, because I can wait as long as you can wait. So if we're in a holdout, I can sit out as long as, because the money's not, that's not what this is only about. Don't get me wrong. I do a job. I want to get paid.
Of course.
But if we down, we down. Because I don't have nobody to answer to. There's nobody over my shoulder saying, and this is what the industry, before I go, this is what the industry was really upset about. Control. There's nobody to call to say, make Rich Paul do X, Y, or Z. So I can always do what's best for the client as long as the client and his family allow me to do so. There's very few guys in my industry that can say that.
Yes. Very few.
Very few. Yeah.
Because the way that everything's just structured in the background that you have, like your mortgage isn't dependent upon that at all.
Yeah.
Rich Paul, I was smiling again, audience, because my audience knows I love to get the Constitution to a person. And I think hearing you give how you think about contracts and deal making made me realize why your father is so front and center. I think a lot of people, and myself coming into this interview, was thinking it's been underneath all the different incredible business individuals that you've been able to sit around with. But hearing you talk just now, it reminded me of the black man who owns a convenience store in the corner, who is navigating opening closing times with his fellow competitor next door. That is actually where you learned your Constitution on how to be a great businessman, negotiator. And I see now why your father is so sprinkled throughout this book.
Yep, you got it.
Rich Paul, you are absolutely amazing, my guy.
Thank you, brother.
I look forward to having you come back on the Mike Muse show, man.
Anytime,
I want to unpack more of this.
For sure.
We got more to go. Audience, please make sure you get the book, Lucky Me, a memoir of changing the odds, out now. Rich Paul did not disappoint, folks.
Thank you.
Peace.